No way Schulman can get away from this, but does he lose it all?
675.
And just gonna look Schulman up.
About to make the walk of shame. A 10 on the river saves him.
Oh, he's so cool, I hate him.
All the action's been at this end of the table.
Well, even as a chip leader, it's tough to try to take control when there's so much action happening all around you.
Schulman will raise small to big with King 10. Siva in the big blind with King Jack.
Nick out of position and dominated.
Siva calls.
Both hands a little under-repped at this point.
And it's a king high flop.
This could be a disaster. Nick Schulman should continue.
He does bet 180,000.
These hands are absolute monsters short-handed. And it looks like Scott is going to raise, believing he can get action from worse, and he is right.
Remember, those green chips are 25,000 each, so that's a raise to 425,000.
No way Schulman can get away from this, but does he lose it all?
He is counting out a re-raise. Schulman 3-bets to 775,000.
He's 3-betting really small to induce. Big mistake. Scott's not folding either.
I'm all in.
Scott shoves.
Call.
And Schulman calls.
And we are about to lose Nick Schulman in the exact same spot he went out in 2011.
He only has 2 outs. Meanwhile, Scott Siva is on the verge of winning a pot of more than 3.6 million and drawing practically even with Doc Sands. A deuce on the turn, Schulman down to 5% equity, about to make the walk of shame. A 10 on the river saves him.
No problem, OP.
A 2-outer saves Nick Schulman.
That is just brutal.
It's never easy.
Nick Schulman is way too lucky to be a Cleveland fan.
Action has been folded around to Nick Schulman in the small blind. And he will call.
You have like 2-2, 2-3.
Scott Siva with 8-4 off in the big blind.
In these spots, Scott's actually got position, so this isn't actually so bad for him, especially knowing what he's up against.
He checked his option and pairs his 8 on the flop. Schulman pairs his 5.
This couldn't have gone any better for Scott. Top pair for him, middle pair for Schulman.
Nick checks, Scott bets. 110,000.
Scott working his position. Schulman not too likely to fold a pair.
He doesn't, he calls. He goes to the turn, which is the 7 of hearts.
Interesting card. Both players pick up gut shots.
Nick checks a second time.
Scott's probably quite confident in his hand at this point. Should be able to bet it for pure value.
He does bet a second time, 225,000.
Nick's got pretty good equity against most hands and might even be winning some of the time, so again, he's probably sticking around.
He calls. The river is a 9.
Nick Schulman catches another river.
He checks his 2 pair.
I got an 8.
And Siva checks behind.
Yep, they got you again, Scotty. Got you again.
Petito calling from the button with 4-3 offsuit against Borenstein's +1 open.
You ever heard of the power of position?
That is a little out of line, just a tad.
So Borenstein's open called by Petito and Schulman.
The 4-3 is going to win, isn't it?
Not necessarily. Okay, so Petito has paired his 3, however, Schulman's 9's still ahead.
A decent flop for Schulman, but out of position against 2 opponents. Just going to check it over. And Petito can actually have, of course, a much stronger range than his actual holding in this spot. When he calls an early position open, he should have a lot of the middling pairs that are playing pretty well against this board. He will have perhaps some king queen suited, king jack suited, king 10 suited, those types of hands that are going to be in the mix as well. So trip certainly a possibility, but for Schulman, just good enough for him to continue.
So still three-way going to the turn, 7 of hearts. Schulman now a 4-1 favorite in this three-way pot.
Oh, he's so cool. I hate him.
Now leads on the turn and leads small, 50K into 365K.
That's funny because Batito is Spanish for little bet.
275.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
That is not a little bet.
Well, listen. All right. If you're going to call pre with 4-3 offsuit, then I like to see you take this line against the lead. You don't expect Schulman, of course, to be leading that often with trips and for that sizing. So perhaps detecting a little bit of weakness. Oh. And as I mentioned, this line credible in the sense that he will have trips here sometimes, but Schulman, you know, trying to get away with a block bet of sorts with that lead on the turn, doesn't fully believe it. So let's find out how out of line Batito can get. Will he follow through now without improving?
I didn't even have time to say he was going to give up before he gave up.
Nice.
Nick.
A good hand, a good pot for Nick Schulman, who now has the table chip lead.
Use in with ace.
I've been here like
something.
2.5 years.
Schulman certainly won't be folding Jack 10.
A little too old to know, my friend.
44, that's your age.
Use other card, the 9 of hearts.
So you're born like 89?
Queen 9, 8, 2 spades. 1 heart, 1 9. Up and down for Schulman.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. You
Poker
with
like
middle
in San
pair,
Diego.
backdoor possibilities.
What's the
Oh
poker
wait,
like in
sorry.
San Diego?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I want
Up and down to the 6 card straight.
Yeah, Schulman's going to want to start putting more chips into the pot very quickly. Wants to try to get as much money in there as possible.
Would you come along?
Leaving after this tournament?
Oh, with ace, 9 of hearts, yes.
No, I meant him. Big old brick on the turn.
You know what you was hoping for, wanted to improve to some backdoors. But again, I think it's just too quick to start folding potentially with a pretty innocuous turn card. Schulman can certainly double barrel with some of the Jack X, some of the 10X.
Very fortunate.
Ooh,
Very
committing a whole lot of chips. Well, the hand that can't win is unlikely to improve.
Well,
Flush draw, no good.
Okay, well, good news, 7-6 gets there, which is, you know, a part of Schulman's semi-bluffs. But again, as I mentioned, you doesn't block any spades and doesn't block any Jack X, 10X.
675.
And now I just like 75
Yeah.
You checks, Schulman bets 675.
I think with this run out, you know, queens and nines and 9s and 8s are going to be able to go for value. Queen 8, of course, and you blocking some of those 2-pair combos, just going to look Schulman up.
Indeed, the up gets looked.
Nice answer.
Thank you.
Such a great flop.
Who is kissing Nick Schulman's butt other than me?
Other than
That's
you.
a money flop.
In the river.
Doesn't he know that there's only room for 1 set of lips and those are Joe Stapleton's?